Hello class, in this video we're going to be sketching parabolas using the quadratic formula. The learning intention is to be able to use the quadratic formula to determine the x-intercepts of a quadratic graph, and lastly to learn how to sketch a quadratic equation by finding and listing down all of the key features graphically. At this stage of the course, you guys should be fairly confident at sketching quadratic equations when expressed in the different forms. In today's lesson, we're just going to be looking at how do you sketch equations expressed in the standard form by using the quadratic formula. So just follow these three steps over here: find the y-intercept, find the x-intercept, find the turning point, and once you find all these three features, then you should be able to actually graph your quadratic equation. And notice over here, to find out your turning point, you're going to be using this formula here over here, so negative b on 2a, to find the x value turning point, and the y value can be determined by plugging in that x value into the original equation. Okay, so let's go through two examples in today's lesson. So in our very first example over here, let's quickly find out what is your y-intercept. So your y-intercept is going to be the value of c, so your c value is going to equal to 5, so it's going to be 0, 5. To find out your x-intercept, we're going to be using quadratic formula. So in order to do this, we'll just list down the values of a, b, c and plug them into the formula. Remember that there are two variants of the quadratic formula. There's one that has the positive version over here as well as the negative version. So please do not forget this. So what we'll now do is we're just going to simplify the equation. So if you do this, then you're going to get this. You could therefore simplify the surd, so we'll find out what is 36 minus 60. But in this case over here, since 60 is a bigger number than 36, this is going to result in a negative number when you find the difference between these two. And we know that you cannot take the square root of a negative number. Hence, in this particular example over here, there will be no x-intercepts at all. And lastly, to find your turning point, you want to be using the formula negative b on 2a. So substitute b, which is in this case negative 6. Two negatives will make a positive, so 6 divided by 6 will give you positive 1. So that's the x value of your turning point. To find out the y value, just substitute that value of there into the original equation. So if you do this, just simplify and you will get a y value equal to 4. Hence your turning point is going to equal to 1, 4. Once we find out all these three features over here, then we can start plotting our graph accurately. So in this case over here, since we have no x-intercept, I've actually deliberately showed like very low or few y values, since there is no values below the x-axis at all, since there's no x-intercept. So what I'll do is I'm going to plot these two coordinates, which is my y-intercept as well as my turning point. So this is where it's going to start to dip. So just draw any curve that connects these two dots, and therefore this is going to be your answer. And make sure you are labeling the coordinates as well as your axes as well. For the very last example we're going to go through, again, we're going to go through the exact same steps. So find out your y-intercept, which is the value of c. So that's going to be negative 3 in this case. That's a typo. So it should be 0, negative 3. To find out your x-intercept, what we're going to do is we're going to find the values of a, b, c and plug them into the formula. So these are the values of a, b, and c. What we'll do now is we'll plug it into the quadratic formula. So this is what you should arrive to. And again, remember that there's the two versions, the positive as well as the negative version. What we'll do now is we'll simplify. So therefore, you're going to get this. Let's simplify what 16 plus 24 is. That's going to equal to square root of 40. And in this case over here, when you've got a square root, a surd, like this, see if you can actually simplify even further. In this case, you can, because in this case, writing the square root of 40 is the same thing as writing 4 times 10. And in this case, we know that 4 is a perfect whole square. So in this case, if you take the square root of 4, that's going to be 2, and that will just go outside of the surd. So therefore, if I simplified it, this is what my workout would look like. And now, because it's a common factor, 2 is a common factor, we could therefore divide it by 2 for the numerator and denominator, and hence this is going to be my answer over here. Okay, so in this case, I've also expressed my x-intercepts into decimals, and the reason why I've done this is because that when I graph this out, I will be able to plot these points more readily than these ones, since I don't even know what these values are equal to. Okay. And lastly, finding what your turning point is. So when you find the turning point, use the formula negative b on 2a, substitute the values in, you're going to get an x value that's equal to negative 1. To find the y value, sub x is equal to negative 1 and y is equal to negative 5. So your turning point is equal to negative 1, negative 5. Once we've done that, then let's plot our graph over here. So in this case, I'm going to plot down all the values that I've known. Now remember over here, I've decided to convert my x-intercepts into two decimal places just so I can accurately plot where the x-intercepts are going to lie. But when I actually label them along the actual x-axis, I'm going to use the exact values, and we generally prefer to use exact values in our final answers. Okay, so once I've done that, just draw a curve that connects all these four dots. Hence, this will be your answer over here. After doing these two examples over here, you guys should have a pretty good understanding of how you can actually sketch the quadratic equation by finding out the quadratic formula. So please use the rest of your time so you can answer these questions over here. So answer questions 1, 2, 3, as well as 4. Questions 5 and 6 is really important because it's going to ask you to sketch for these ones over here. And when you're sketching, try to be as accurate as possible and try to draw the parabolas as symmetrical as possible as well. And lastly, for question 8. This is the end of today's video. Hopefully you're able to meet the success criteria. I'll see you guys again in the next video. Bye.